Hello everyone, welcome to AdiTrade. Today we're going to be seeing the Camarilla pivot and the 4 setups that are associated with it. I've just opened my Zerodha charting page. I'll be showing you how to plot this Camarilla pivot as well. So what this Camarilla pivot will give us is nothing but the support and resistance based on a calculated formula. Now what is the formula is this, what is displayed here. Based on the previous day close, previous day high, previous day low, we can get the support and resistance for the next day. We don't have to learn this formula, it's just good to know. See, the conventional way of representing the resistance and support in Camarilla is, for resistance it is represented as H1, H2, H3, H4. That's nothing like R1, R2, R3, R4. And the support is represented as L1, L2, L3, L4 instead of S1, S2, S3, S4. This is the conventional naming method, but all the recent brokers and the recent trading view, when you add the Camarilla pivot, you just get as R1, R2 and S1, S2, not the L. But we will be referring both H and R. So basically H1, R1 is resistance, L1 and S1 is for support. It's basically the same, it's just the few brokers and few charting platforms, how they name it is different, either H and R or L and S. So in Zerodha, when we add our pivot, we just go to indicators and type in pivot standard. So you get the standard pivot. So to get the Camarilla, we'll have to go into the settings, choose Camarilla, click OK. So this is the Camarilla pivot. See, as I told you, the conventional way of doing it is with naming it as H1, H3 for resistance, but most of the charting platforms nowadays represent it as R1, R2, but the value will be the same and the pivot line also will be represented. Now out of this, let me hide this price action just to explain so this is the Camarilla pivots. Now out of this pivots, what are the most important pivots that we need are R3, R4, S3 and S4, and we also have R5 and S5, which is not in this pivot table. So we don't want this R1, R2, S1, S2 and the pivot. We will not need it. Anyway, the pivot and the CPR pivot is the same. We'll have the CPR pivot. So we can remove the unwanted ones. So for that, again come into the settings, go to style, remove pivot, S1, S2. For some reason this S5, R5 is not coming up, right? So what do? S5, R5 is also a very important level for us. So if we are using this Zerodha as the charting platform, we won't be able to plot R5 and S5, but those are the levels we require. But we can get those levels R5 and H5 in TradingView. There are some customized indicators where people have written. We are coming up with our own. It will just take couple of weeks. For now we can use the CD_Camarilla all levels. To add that, just go to indicators and type in this Camarilla formula updated for 5 and 6 levels by Christian D. We can add this, we get all the levels. I have added this R3 H3 as a text just for our reference. So we have R3 H3, R4 H4, R5 H5. See, when we go to the settings, all the levels will be there. H1, H2, H3. We'll have to just come and just reset it. Now in case if I do this reset settings, when we add, this is how it will pop up for us. There will be a lot of levels and we can change our coloring as per our needs. So we'll go and remove whatever is unwanted. What we don't want is H2, H1, L1, L2. We need L3, L4, L5, H3, H4 and H5. It's nothing but R3, R4, R5, S3, S4, S5, there's another black line. I think even the pivot is there. We can even remove this daily pivot because we will be using the CPR pivot as well. So these are the levels we will be using. In this indicator, we also have R6 and H6, sorry, this is H5. We also have R6 and H6 and L6 and S6. Those are these other two lines. We can just keep it for reference, not a problem. Now what are the four setups that we have? These are the four setups that are there. I'll be explaining each one. See, the first one is called bullish breakout. If the price breaks R4H4, if the price breaks R4H4, then the next target will be the R5H5 as the target. So what this means is, now this is the R4H4, right? First I'll just explain all the setups without the price action, then let's add the price action and check also. So this is the R4H4 level. If the price breaks this, right, with a nice bullish candlestick, most likely we will hit R5H5. Fine. That is the first setup or the first rule. The second one is bearish reversal. That is, if the price opens between R3 and L3. See, if the price opens between R3 and L3, we might take resistance at R3 and reverse back to S3 and L3. So basically it states R3H3 reversal with S3 and L3 as target. So the second setup, what it states is, see, this is the R3 level, the red line, the bottom red line is the S3 level. If the price opens in the morning, if it opens between this R3 or S3, and if we go up, we might take resistance at this R3 level or the H3 level and reverse back to the S3. This is the first target. Then if this breaks, we have S4. If S4 breaks, then we'll have S5. But the first target will be S3. I'll just repeat this point again. If the price opens in the morning between R3 of Camarilla pivot and S3 of Camarilla pivot, and the price starts going up, we are most likely to take resistance at the R3 level and then dip until the S3 of the Camarilla pivot. Now there will be one common question that will come up is, what if we, let me just get rid of this line. There will be one common question is, see, the second scenario applies if the price opens between R3 and H3, right? Now what if the price opens above R3? Now say, what if the price opens above R3, the price comes down and then comes and takes reversal here, then this setup is not valid. It might take resistance here and go down, but it's not like a sure thing. A sure possibility is when the price opens between R3 and S3, goes up, takes resistance at R3, and there is a possible of reversal. The fourth setup is bullish reversal. It is exactly the opposite of this bearish reversal. Bullish reversal, S3 H3 reversal with the target of R3 H3 as the target. So this is basically the exactly opposite of the other setup, the previous setup that we saw. Again in this, if the price opens between R3 and S3, there is a possibility that the price will come until S3, take support here and then move up to R3 as the first target. Fine. And the last setup that we have in this Camarilla pivot is bearish breakout, or you can say the bearish breakdown. S4, L4 breakout with S5, L5 as target. This is completely, it is the same but opposite of the first setup that we saw. If S4 breaks, right, now say wherever the market opens and the market is falling, if this S4 level breaks, most likely we will hit the S5 level, and that can be our first target. So this is what the 4 setups that is there in the Camarilla pivot. And one thing about this Camarilla pivot is it will not work quite often. The rate at which it works is less compared to the CPR and other pivots, but when it works beautifully. That's why we add it and we keep it on the chart. So if somebody is using the Zerodha platform, they can have all their other indicators here and probably only the Camarilla pivot on another window, just the charts. So when the price opens, right, in the morning itself, you can see where the reversal or a breakout, what is happening. So now we know the 4 setups. I'll just repeat it, then we'll see some examples on the chart. Quickly, I'll just repeat the 4 setups. Okay, this R4, RH4 labeling is just gone, but this is the R4 level. The first setup is, if there is a breakout of R4 with a nice bullish candle, the first target will be R5. The second setup is, I'll try to keep both on the screen here. The second setup is, if the price opens in the morning between R3 and S3, we are most likely to go up, take resistance at R3 and then reverse until S3. The third setup is, if the price opens, see when the price opens we don't know whether it is going up or down, so we'll wait. So the moment the price comes down and takes support at this S3 level, there is a possibility if we get a nice bullish candle here, the price will reverse until R3. And the last point is opposite of the first point. Wherever the market opens, if the S4 level is broken, most likely we will get a breakdown until the S5 or L5 of Camarilla pivot. Even if S5 breaks, this is a S6, but S6 doesn't come in our Indian market unless we have like a super war scenario or something. It's too far stretched out. The target between S4 and S5 is good. Now I'm just going to remove all this setup and put the price action. I'm on a 15-minute chart. Now let's see how many times where all the price, the setup worked, how it worked, and how we could have traded. The setups listed. Now we're just going to see some example. So this was the most recent example on March 15th, where we opened between the, now you know the red lines are, let's see if the labels are available. Okay, labels are not coming, no problem. So we know this red line is R3, the above, below is S3, above that is R4, below that is S4. See, we came to R3 in this region, we took resistance and then started falling, and even S3 broke and we went to S4. S4 broke but could not sustain, we immediately reversed. If we are trading only based on the Camarilla pivot, this entry and this exit itself was a beautiful one. And one more disadvantage of this Camarilla pivot is the place where we place stop loss will be a little far off, so it's not the best setup for option buying. See how stop loss is placed in Camarilla pivot is, if we are entering shorting here, we go ahead and place the stop loss here. A consecutive stop loss can be the day's high from where it reversed. For option, if you are buying option buying, if you are doing option buying based on the we have to keep the stop loss at the pivot level itself. More on stop loss will come on the last video on the trading setup. Now let's see where all this Camarilla setup worked. Now this is another day where we opened below R3, we went up, we broke R4. So what does our setup say? If R4 breaks, most likely we will hit R5, and that's the same thing that happened. I'll go ahead and even put off this H6 and L6 so that we don't get confused. So now it's pretty clear, right? So it's pretty clear. The stop line is R3, R4, R5. Right? See, compared to CPR, this doesn't work most of the times. Like probably in a week you will see one time or once or twice. But CPR setups are most likely to happen on a daily basis or so. See, these are the two examples that we found so far, where the Camarilla pivot setups worked. See, in this case, though we went above R4, we are not going to enter because it is in almost the closing part of the day, 2:45. Even if we had entered thinking that we are going to hit this R5, our stop loss will be the pivot line itself. So if we get a breakout and the candle comes back below the pivot, we will exit our trade, right? Especially for option buying. See, when we get this type of huge gap down, right, that's why trading becomes difficult, because this is that war scenario where we got this huge gap down. We are thrown out of all the pivots, right? Sorry, when we are thrown out of all the pivots, yeah, it tends to get a little difficult, but still based on price action we'll be able to trade. There are some days where this Camarilla pivot has worked beautifully. I've taken so many trades. But as mentioned, again, this does not work on a daily basis, unlike CPR works better, but this is very good to know. But when it works beautifully, right? Now see, on this day, we have taken support at S3 and reversed until R3. And again over here, when on this nice bullish day when we were going up, when R4 broke, this was an easy target until R5. Again on this day, Feb 10th, Banknifty 15-minute chart, if R4 broke and we got an easy target until R5. These are the setups that where we can even do scalping. Let me just shift to a 5-minute chart. Like people talk about scalping where we enter and exit within few minutes, right? These are definitely scalping trades, right? How many points we could get? 400 points. So the option premium would have moved 200 points if we had entered after this R5 breakout and exited exactly over here. See, once we cross even R5, then we can just keep this line as a trailing stop loss and just hit. The moment, see what is trailing stop loss is. See, the moment we cross this level, right, we'll keep this as a trailing stop loss. So until the price comes back to this level, we'll hold. If it comes, we'll exit. Still, we are in very good profit. See, obviously this entry would have come much here. We could have even entered here based on our other setups. But as of now, we are seeing only the Camarilla setup, right? So I'm just showing you only where the Camarilla setup has worked. See, a day like this is where we would have got confused. We should never wait for an extra candle thinking that it might go. If it is not going, it's not going. See, this is S3 on the downside. You have R3, R4, you have S3, S4, this is S5. Now on this day what happened? S4 broke on the downside. So as per the Camarilla setup, what we will keep our next target on the downside as S5 over here, right? But see what happened, immediately we reversed. So how to avoid this is, we won't be able to know whether we are going to reverse or not, right? So best is keep the stop loss at this S3 level itself. The moment this candle came back inside S3, just close your position with whatever PNL loss is there. Because in case we don't and wait thinking again it's going to fall, if it is falling, we can always re-enter. See the kind of move. Option buying would have become zero in this move if we had shorted over here based on Camarilla pivot. This is another beautiful day where this R3, R4 broke and we hit R5. This scalp itself was more than enough for intraday trading. This is another nice example where we reversed from S3 but failed to hit R3 and again came, probably stop loss would have hit. But on this day there were other levels why we could have booked a profit at this level. The moment we saw this inverted doji, right, which is a bearish candlestick pattern, and the day's high, we are seeing this kind of a reversal pattern, we could have definitely booked our profits over here, and not, because there is potential, the chart is showing that there is a potential reversal, and then see the kind of reversal that happened. So these are the days where it didn't work and probably the stop loss would hit. See, knowing all the setups and all that is one thing. It's not that no setup will work 100% for sure always, right? It's only a probability of 60 to 70 or 80%. If something worked always, everybody would have made crores together. But considering these type of setups, when we see most of the times, yes, they do work. So how we decide on taking a trade is also very important. See, over here again we reverse from S3 and went until, this is R3. We reversed from R3 and went down until S3 beautifully. So like this, you will have to do more back testing on a 5-minute chart, 15-minute chart, and see if you can practice trading based on Camarilla pivot. See, these pivots and setups, just knowing this is not enough. We need to know kind of everything, right? All the candlestick pattern, volume, moving averages, we can combine everything also and take a trade. So this is how we use the Camarilla pivots, and these are the 4 setups that we have. Obviously, initially if somebody is using this Camarilla pivot for the first time, it will be a little difficult to spot the entries and exit and the kind of move that we are having, but over the time, after doing some enough of back testing, yes, you will be able to do it.